What up? So it's April 3rd, and I'm going to be leaving on my van trip today. I'm coming for you, Birmingham, Alabama, and then I'll be making my way across the 10 over the next couple of weeks, months, I don't know, depending on how cool places are. I may stay forever. I'll be posting on Instagram and whatnot about where I'm going to be, how long I'm going to be there. I'm just going to be trying to meet up with locals, and I don't want to do some kind of crazy strict schedule because it puts a lot of pressure on me getting to places on time, and I don't want people to be taken off work specifically for me to come into town and then I like break down somewhere and I can't get there and they took off work. I don't want to put that kind of drama on you guys, so I'll just be traveling kind of slow and coming through some cities along the southern United States and just check it out. I'll post on Facebook, social media, all kinds of things, Facebook, Instagram. I'll try to do some stuff on here as I'm going through cities so that you guys can keep up to date with where I am, and if you want to meet up with me, let's do it. But this particular video is going to be brought to you by Ethix Ltd. If you haven't checked out ethixltd.com, check it out. It's my website, doing all kinds of cool stuff, trying to get you guys a little more refined when it comes to FPV, making this stuff easier, not by coming out with the latest and greatest thing all the time, but kind of refining a formula, making it easier for you guys to stick with something and make sure that it's going to work for what you want it to do, whatever goals you have for FPV. So we're going to talk about audio today. What is audio when we're talking about quadcopters? How does it work? And what are the components that could potentially make it better or worse? Or maybe the audio you've tried in the past wasn't set up correctly, and that's why you don't like audio. Or maybe your audio currently is set up to where it could be better. So first of all, why would you use audio on a quadcopter? There are plenty of reasons why I think that you should use audio on a quadcopter, and I will start by going over 3 scenarios where you could potentially have audio and it would benefit you. So first of all, best case scenario, you're at a race, there's a lot of loud stuff going on, there's a lot of quads in the air, you can't really decipher. You use a lot of audio cues when you go out and fly. When you're flying by yourself, you hear your quad and you base a lot of your judgment off of the audio that you're hearing, regardless if it's coming into a speaker. You just hear it like ambient noise, right? So when you're at an event and there's a lot of quads going around, there's a lot of people blipping throttle, there's a lot of noise going on, it can actually be disorienting when you hear other people make throttle movements because you're only basing everything you're seeing off of visual cues. You're only flying off of visual cues. You're not actually getting the same audio cues that you would get when you go out and fly by yourself or you fly with a couple friends instead of an entire race. So that's a scenario where audio can add extreme immersion and get you a little bit more of an advantage. There's another scenario when you fly in a loud environment, not at a race. You're flying maybe near a highway, not on a highway, but under a bridge or something, and there's a lot of just loud noises. You're gonna experience less immersion. When you're talking about visual cues, you're probably gonna be less immersed when you have a big loud audio source, maybe it be a highway or something like that, making noise, and you're not able to hear your quad as well as you could if you were in a park or something like that. The third scenario is when you're flying long range. When you're flying long range, there's actually a lot that audio can do for you. Based on how far you are away, if you make a throttle input and it's delayed, it can actually disorient you and make you feel like something is wrong because you make a blip of the throttle, you see what happened, but you may not hear it for 5 to 10 seconds. And when you hear that later, it actually kind of puts a little fear in you if you're not used to it, because you're like, oh, Am I doing something? Did something happen? Is it actually doing what I want it to do? So that delay in audio, because the speed of sound is slower than the speed of light at our radio waves are transmitting at. But the thing is that it actually can disorient you based on that delay. And if you have audio, then you're getting the audio in real time, and it helps you out as far as maintaining that level of confidence. Also, you can tell when something's wrong with the quad. If you crash, you flip upside down, maybe a propeller is off. Maybe a propeller is bent and it's touching an ESC. Maybe your balance lead is sticking off and you can't hear it because of the loud environment. Have you ever heard, you've been to a race, I'm sure, someone takes off and you got 20 people screaming, "Ah, balance lead, balance lead!" People are freaking out because someone's balance lead is touching the propeller. They're flying around, they're afraid there's gonna cause like a lipo fire or something, and they have no idea who it is. If you had audio, you would be, oh, it's me, I'll turn around, balance lead. Or, you know, I don't care, I'm just gonna keep flying, and I know it's me. If something happens, I know what happened. It was my fault for not putting the balance lead, or it was my tech's fault for not putting the balance lead properly on the quad. So there's plenty of reasons and scenarios where audio could actually benefit you. Now, how do you set up audio on a quad? Now, audio is pretty simple. You have a microphone on the quadcopter, you have a speaker on the goggle side. Now, when we're talking about flying with audio, these things are fairly simple. All you have is a camera on the bottom, a video transmitter. The video transmitter transmits the camera signal back to your goggles, which are received via the receiver, then output onto this LCD screen, and then you see what the quadcopter sees in real time. Now, when you're talking about audio, it's the same thing. You have a speaker on the quadcopter. It transmits via the video transmitter. Same exact signal that is on the same wavelength as your video comes back to the receiver, assuming your receiver can receive audio, and then it's outputted through a speaker in your goggles, assuming your goggles can output audio. Fat Shark has always outputted audio. And for me, the LaForge has always had really good audio. And I'll talk about modules a little bit later on. Certain modules have different characteristics, and there's a lot of things to do with audio that you might not realize what makes quality audio good. That's kind of a weird thing. But so back to the basics. You have a microphone on the quad. Now, when you have a microphone on the quad, there are different types of microphones. There's a microphone there are a lot of cameras out there, like the Runcam Swift 2 has a microphone built in to the actual camera itself. Now, this is a good microphone, and there are a lot of video transmitters that actually have microphones built onto them, and they're all pretty much the same microphone. It's just a little tiny, like cylindrical looking thing with a little black cover on it. You can probably see it. You'll see mic written next to it or something like that. And those work well, depending on if they're shielded from wind, because wind noise can actually affect a microphone's audio quality really, really badly, depending on where the audio or where the microphone's placed. So if it's in the camera, it's actually in one of the best places because it's inside a shielded housing, and it's not actually getting a lot of wind noise. If it's on the video transmitter, that can be a different story depending on where it is. If it's still under the heat shrink, it can be good. If you cut the heat shrink off and the microphone's exposed, then you might be getting a little bit more wind noise than you thought. Now, those are not dynamic mics, those are just microphones. So whatever level the audio comes in, you actually have to adjust on the goggles to set up the audio level. Now, if you land in grass, you might not be able to hear anything, but when you take off, the audio might be great, and that might be perfectly fine for you. And I've dealt with that for a long time, not having a dynamic mic. Now, Sean from Impulse RC, when we were kind of figuring out the PDB and what was going to go on it, I knew I wanted a microphone on my Mr. Steele PDB for the Alien. And he said, you know, what if we did a dynamic mic on there where the gain would adjust based on the input. So when you're on the ground and there's not a high input, the gain actually cranks up and you can hear things like really, really well. It's so good that I'll have my microphone in and I can hear people talking on the other side of me better than if I just had my ear listening to them, because the mic is that sensitive. But when you take off, the gain adjusts based on the loud noises coming from the quad, and you can actually hear what the quad is doing a little bit easier than if you were just listening to a bunch of wind noise, or if it was set up to where the microphone didn't adjust. So having a dynamic mic is extremely cool, but it's not necessarily, you know, end all be all. But if you can do it, it's awesome. So dynamic microphone helps a lot. Being able to shield it from wind noise is going to help you a lot. So I always put a piece of foam in front of my microphone so that it's shielded from wind noise, and I'm only getting the resonant frequencies and the audio coming from the quad. And what kind of audio do I look for when I'm looking for audio coming from the quad? Now, what you want to hear is obviously as little wind noise as possible, but you want to hear motor noise, you want to hear prop noise. Now, why is that important? Because when you're flying, you actually use the prop noise of the quad to adjust throttle. You use these audio cues to actually adjust throttle when you're flying. you can use visual cues, but a lot of people subconsciously use audio cues to adjust throttle. Now, if you're flying far away or you're in a loud environment, this can really benefit you because now you're hearing all of these audio cues in real time and directly from your quad, not from other people's quads, or not being drowned out by some kind of epic noise source. So being able to hear your quad in real time is very important. Now, this can be subject as far as quality audio based on your microphone and your speaker and your receiver setup, which I'll get into next. But like I said, what you're looking for in quality audio is having good quality prop noise, and it's motor prop noise, a little bit of both depending on, it's mainly prop noise. But what you want is quality audio coming from the propellers and the propellers only. If you got something touching your propeller, you hear it directly. You don't hear a bunch of and you think you hear something. If you got your audio set up well, like you tune your video and you have it set up well to where it's picking up what you want it to pick up, and you're not looking at visual lines like on your video. Say your video is crappy, your video transmitter is going out, you got lines all over the place. It's the same thing. If you have crappy audio, you're not getting the quality signal that you could get to make the judgments that you would normally make if you had a good signal. So again, quality prop noise, very clear prop noise is what you're looking for, and that can all be subject to the microphone and the speaker combo. So going into that now, we're going to talk about the receiving side and why this is important. So obviously you need a set of goggles or something that you're receiving that can output audio. The HDV2s are currently what I'm using. I've been using them for the longest time because I like the larger field of view. This is 50 degrees field of view. The HDV3s are like 43 degrees field of view. There are a bunch of different field of views that are not as big as the 50 degree. For some reason, this works well with my eyes, and I like the immersion that I get from the HDV2s. Now, with that being said, I got audio coming out of them. Fat Sharks have always been notorious for supplying a 3.5 millimeter jack that is capable of outputting audio coming from the receiver, assuming your receiver can receive audio. Now, on this particular quad, I have a Unify Pro 5V that is capable of sending audio. Obviously, I have my dynamic mic off this Mr. Steele PDB sending audio out of the video or out of the Unify Pro, out of this little Triumph here, back, and I'm receiving it over here on the receiver side. Now, I know a lot of people have seen me recently trying out the LaForge V4. I just recently got that, and the Clearview module. So why am I flying this, and what is this? You guys saw me before. I had the Forge V3 and it was set up differently. I had the diversity module over here. So this is actually the Forge V3, but I put a new case on. A fan of mine sent me this case with a little switch on the side here so that I don't have to plug in my goggles every time, because that can be kind of a pain in the butt. There's a little bit of a downside to it. You can't put it in the box safely with this barrel connector plugged in, so you do have to plug in the connector once you get there, but you can turn the goggles off and on with a switch, which is actually really nice. But when I did that, I didn't feel like wiring up the LaForge V3 again where it was over here, so I just double-sided sticky taped it to the top over here and ran my Omni on the higher antenna, because it actually puts the antenna a little bit higher than it does if you're on a 90 degree on the main module. And then I have my patch antenna on the actual main module on the LaForge V3, and this is a crosshair. I know Alex is going to get all upset at me because it's not a patch antenna, it's a directional crosshair, but it is a directional antenna and it is on the main module. So with that being said, this is an actual LaForge V3. It's not a LaForge V4, and I'll get into that in a minute. And then LaForge V3 for me actually has extremely high quality audio output. And what makes it high quality output audio, or high quality audio output, what makes it high quality is the fact that the volume adjustment is right in the money. Like, it's right at the spot where you can make it too loud and you can make it too quiet. And this is a problem with some of the other modules, and I'll talk to you guys about that in a minute, that has to do with, if you can't hear it, why are you using it? If it's too loud and distorted, then you can't use it either. You need it to be right in that sweet spot, very much like making a perfect video signal. You want it to be crisp and no lines, and you want the camera to be set up, the settings to be right. All of this stuff is related to audio in the same way, but it's a little slightly different, obviously, because you don't want it to be too distorted, you don't want it to be too quiet, you want to be able to hear the prop noise. All of these things can be subjective to what you think you need the most, but in reality, you need to be able to hear clean audio from the quad, and it's not blowing your eardrum out, because that doesn't help you either. Now the final piece to the puzzle is the actual speaker itself that you're listening to the audio on. And everybody thinks this is pretty simple. This is a very simple thing, but it wasn't simple to make this thing work the way that it should. And why I say that is there's a couple reasons why this is special. So I've made a bunch of these little mono ear pods. All this is an earbud that is cut to form one 3.5 mil instead of having this really long audio cable and a pair of headphones. This is just, you plug it into your ear, it plugs directly into the goggles, super simple, right? So what makes this special is we've actually merged the two channels, so you have left and right audio from if you had two speakers, and they would go into this stereo jack here. We merged the left and right speakers into one so that it's one signal coming from this. So if you have a left and right channel, depending on your video transmitters, there's the Unify and then there's other transmitters out there. Depending on the transmitter you have, for example, TBS products transmit on the right channel of audio. Immersion RC transmits on the left channel of audio. So there's two channels, there's left and right for audio. Depending on your video transmitter, it can transmit on one or the other. For the most part, most video transmitters out there transmit on the right channel. Immersion is the only one that I know of off the top of my head that actually transmits on the left channel. This actually negates, regardless of the video transmitter you're using, will work with both because it's merged from the stereo output into one mono speaker. So that is a thing that's slightly complicated. When people make these things, they don't realize until they actually try it and they're like, why isn't it working? So you got to merge the two channels. But the other thing is the actual audio coming from the speaker is very important. Now, this is special because I probably went through 20 to 25 different speakers to find the right output, the right speaker. And that's why I flew the Beats thing for so long. I had so many offers from all these people making these earphones that are like, yo man, you want to try my earphone? I have tried their earphones. Other friends of mine have had them. I've tried them and they didn't fit what I wanted out of an earphone. And what I'm looking for out of the earphone is the quality of the audio to be very precise and very real to what is coming from here. And what that means is you can't just have a really high-pitched speaker, because then all you hear is hiss, and you hear like a really high pitch. It sounds like you're flying 6S, or you sound like you sped up the video and the audio on your video or something. And you can't have a really low pitched speaker because then it becomes too bassy and it like blows your eardrum out when you blip the throttle or something. So there's kind of a sweet spot into what makes this speaker work well. And I actually went through, like I said, 20 to 25 different earbuds to find the right one. And the one that actually had the best audio, which actually outperformed my Beats earphone that Eric made me, it was huge. It was like that big, and it just didn't fit in my ear. I couldn't work with it. But we were able to take the audio, or the actual the speaker out of that can, because it was actually kind of like a Bose system where it had like canals and crap in there, and there was actually a little speaker. So they were able to pull that speaker out and put it into this can, which is a little more, fits in your ear a little bit better and works a little bit better, and the audio quality stayed the same, which I was not expecting, but it actually worked really well. So this thing took a lot of R&D and trial and error to get to where it is today, but it actually performs extremely well. And these are actually, if you're curious, these are on the Ethix and the TBS website. This is the Mr. Steele earphone, and they're cheap, man. I don't care if you buy them. I'm just letting you know that I spent a lot of my time trying to make this thing work because I needed to replace something that I had that was custom built so that other people could experience the quality of audio that I was experiencing. Ethix, man, trying to make stuff cheap, affordable, but yet the R&D is really what you're paying for at the end of the day, because making stuff isn't easy, especially making quality stuff is not easy. So that is the final piece of the puzzle, is having a quality earphone. Now, like I said earlier, I would talk about receivers, and there have been a lot of people asking me, why aren't you using the Clearview module? Why aren't you using the LaForge V4? Now, there are certain things with different modules that make audio annoying, or they make it really nice, a nice experience. For me in particular, the Clearview system, and this is being fixed. I've spoken with Ira and I've had back and forth conversations and said, look, I can't use this if it's going to do this. But the audio was extremely low. If you turn the audio up, to be able to hear what the quad was doing, it had a lot of white noise and it actually wasn't usable. It was usable, but it wasn't the quality of this of what I'm used to, which is the LaForge V3's audio. Then I got the LaForge V4, put the LaForge V4 in here, and the audio is actually the same as the LaForge V3, but there's a little firmware quirk where when it doesn't see a signal on RSSI, that it cuts the white noise off, it cuts that static sound off, and when it cuts the static sound off, it actually introduces a digital sound, which is like an annoying SOS kind of beep, 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 beep in your ear. And it's extremely annoying, and it can be fixed, and it can be adjusted with firmware, but I just haven't done that yet. So for now, I'm using the LaForge V3. So for me, regardless of the quality of video, obviously if it was a substantial difference, I would choose the substantial difference of video quality, but audio is very important to me, and I would rather stick with something that I know works and gives me the quality of audio that I'm used to, rather than switch to something that, you know, might have a feature that I don't ever fucking use on the front of the goggle, but, you know, the audio sucks. So what I'm looking for is quality audio and quality video, and again, like I said, you tune the audio exactly like you tune the video. You choose different antennas, you choose different receivers, you choose different video transmitters, you choose different cameras. All of this stuff is very much like audio. One speaker is not going to be the same as all speakers. One video transmitter is not going to be the same as all video transmitters. One receiver is not going to be the same. One speaker is not going to be the same. So when you hear the argument, oh, it's just a speaker, it's just a receiver, it's just an antenna, it's just a microphone, that's all bullshit. All of it matters, and the formula that works well is what I've made for this. It works well for me. It's not going to work well for everybody, but as far as the quality of audio, I think that this particular setup gives the best audio that I've ever heard out of any quadcopter, regardless of what it was. And I've had a lot of quadcopters with audio, but this particular setup, the dynamic mic, this particular speaker, and then obviously the LaForge V3 for now until something happens with the newer modules and they get the audio right. But yeah, serious business when it comes to audio. I'm very serious about my audio, and you know, whether or not you believe that audio helps or not, that's up to you to try it. It's not expensive. You can put a microphone in your quad for like 10 bucks. You can put a freaking, these things are like $7. So, you know, you could try it out for less than 15 bucks and decide whether you hate it or not. And some people actually have microphones in their cameras. So, you know, you could be out $7 and try audio and decide if you hate it or not. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe. And these long talk videos I like doing them. So if you guys enjoy them, please comment and be like, yo, do more of these. I'm going to be traveling in my van. I think I told you at the beginning, Birmingham is my first stop. So I will see you guys on the road.